Hi, I'm Terrence Gargiulo, your chief storyteller. Last week, I was sitting with the deal team getting ready for orals, and the whole team worked really hard to come up with some compelling innovation stories. And I observed our process, and I came up with 7 basic things that we were doing, so I thought I'd share those with you today. The first is we've got to craft opening story probes. And we do this with simple statements like, what if, or imagine if, or can you picture? So let me try 3 examples. Let's pretend it was like a Marriott hotel and it was big data. I might say, what if a customer walked into your Marriott property and when they got to their room, all of their preferences, the things that they cared about, the lighting of the room, the TV stations they watched, the room service, was all exactly to their liking. So that might be an opening probe. Let's take a company that has some software that supports its products and they've got maybe level 1, 2, and 3 support. So I might use an imagine statement. I might say, imagine if all 560 of your level 2 support folks were able to resolve 75% of their problems without ever touching the trouble ticket, and then had time to begin working on product innovations. Or let's try the third example, which is, can you picture? Maybe this is a retailer. So I might say, can you picture a customer standing in their living room on a Sunday night after they are absolutely fatigued and disappointed that they didn't get a chance to go shopping that weekend, and were able to step into your store, to their favorite floor, to their favorite area, and purchase and see everything that was on your racks? Okay, 3 examples. So we do this as a way of gauging the response. We do this as a way of engaging the listener. And we also do this to help them to step into a scene and paint a picture. Second thing that we do is we chart a story path. So in other words, now as we move beyond just an opening statement, we want to decide, what kind of story do I need to tell here at this moment? And so some of the basic kinds of stories that we need for innovation are a passion story, which is sort of why I care about this particular technology; a background story, which is background on either how that technology or innovation came into existence, or how Accenture has developed that technology. What have we done behind the scenes to evolve a platform or to evolve the application of that technology for an industry? And then the last is innovation in action. So these are either smaller use cases that we use as proof points, or they could be bigger or more substantial case studies, but they should still be told in a compelling way. So I decide what what kinds of stories I'm going to need to use. So the next thing I need to do is actually shape my narrative. Now I'm using the word narrative here very purposefully, because now we're not talking about a single story. We're talking about how I collage multiple stories together. So for example, I may want a passion story and a use case story, so one of those stories of innovation and action, and put them together. I might want to tell the story of how I became a data scientist, and how my 8 years in undergraduate and graduate school at MIT got me enmeshed in the power of data being able to transform our lives and being used in analytical ways. So maybe I need to tell that story, or maybe I need to tell the background story of how we developed the My Wizard platform, and I want to know about how that platform grew and evolved, because that's going to give people a sense of us. It's going to give them a sense of what it's going to feel like if they sign up for some of these innovations and these technologies, because we're going to continue to evolve them from them. Also, what I'm doing here when I shape up my narrative is I'm making sure that each of those story elements, that they inform, they connect, and they emote. And you can take a look. There's a blog post. You can go and get a little bit more information on those, as well as a tool for shaping the form of the specific stories that you decide that you do want to tell in your narrative. So we have a story journey map for you, and there's a link in the blog post that you can check out for that. Fourth step is practice. Now, when I was working with the team, they didn't realize that, if they had a story, that it was enough to have the story. They didn't realize that there was an element of practice that goes into making a story really compelling and effective. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone has to have the same communication style or have a lot of charisma or, be a great performer, but it does mean that they have to be really tight with that story. So practice with either a story coach or with your colleagues. Last, when you go now to tell that story, you need to make sure that you are eliciting stories. So the whole purpose in a client situation, particularly if it's not a big formal orals where you may not have that a luxury of being able to engage, you really are just there to disseminate some information. But if it is more of a meeting situation, which is really where these innovation conversations and stories should be shared, your whole purpose of that story is to elicit stories. Okay. Last, after you've had an opportunity to share that story, now you want to take that experience and weave it in so that the next time that you tell the story, you either have additional stories to include, you are able to be maybe more extemporaneous and you can translate that story for different industries, or you've got a good treasure box of stories that you can pull from so you can make a new mashup, if you will, of different stories configured in different ways for different purposes. So you start to get really good at that. So you start integrating different stories and refine the stories that you've already been using. Last, you socialize. Stories are not to be held as like, hey, I've got the best story to tell that's going to always win the deal. Stories are not about power. They're about sense making, and they're about how all of us can grow and evolve and incite people about the exciting ways that we here at Accenture work with innovation. Hope to see you real soon.